Good morning, friends and enemies. In today's video, we will be going through the entire Week 12 NFL slate of games, game by game, and ranking every fantasy-relevant wide receiver as a start, as a sit, as a flex. And if you missed yesterday's video, we did the same thing for running back, so we'll link that below. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. If you are new here, subscribe to the channel. We do that every Wednesday and every Thursday. Let's get into Thursday night football. We got Buffalo at Houston. Houston right now, 5.5-point underdogs, 43.5-point total. We know that CJ Stroud is out for this one, so we're going to get another Davis Mills game. If we check out the practice reports here, Mecole Hardman out. We got Curtis Samuel out. We got Dalton Kincaid out. So we got some pass catchers on the Buffalo side of things that are out here. Jalen Petrie is going to be out. Nothing else to worry about here. No impact players. Nico Collins been playing really well with Davis Mills. I will say the Buffalo defense been getting much better on the passing side of things, especially with Maxwell Harrison, their first round cornerback back. But at the end of the day, you're not sitting Nico. He's going to go into the must-start category, has shown great chemistry with Mr. Davis Mills. Khalil Shakir on the other side of the ball, 42.5 receiving yard prop, 4.5 receptions. He is just a roller coaster ride, and I think that's kind of been the case throughout his career. And this is a really tough matchup against the Houston Texans secondary, which is obviously just stifling across the board here. Khalil Shakir is just one of those guys where he's tough in season long. You know, at the end of the year, he's going to finish as like the wide receiver 32. And if you try to guess which games he's going to go off in, you're going to be wrong and you're going to miss the good games and you'll probably have him in your lineup for the bad games. That being said, I do think with Dalton Kincaid out, I think with these other pass catchers out, he will run the most routes here. And there was a report yesterday that the Bills do plan on sitting Keon Coleman again and becoming a healthy scratch. So at this point, it's probably part disciplinary. But you're going into 2 weeks, that's also a performance thing. And that with Mecole Hardman and Curtis Samuel out kind of speaks volumes. But the target share is getting a little bit more condensed here. So Khalil Shakir, he's not someone I'm excited about, and I don't feel like confident in it based on the matchup. But he's going to go into the dub flex category because, again, I think at the end of the day, he's a wide receiver 3. When all is said and done, when all the numbers and the chips have been laid on the table, it's just very hard to predict. So he's going to go at the very end of the dub flex tier, but he's the only one that I've put in there for now. So it looks much better than it will be at the end of the video. After these top 2 pass catchers, I'm not overly interested in any of them. Jaden Higgins has been getting a lot more involved in this offense, and he is running the second most routes among the Texans wide receivers. That being said, it's not a significantly high percentage. He's not an every down player yet. He's still splitting snaps with Xavier Hutchinson, and Christian Kirk is still like a 60% guy. Tough matchup here. So he's going to go into the shaky flex category. You can start him if you really need to, but you'd obviously prefer not to. And I don't think there's anyone else in this game that I'm looking to get into my lineup. On the Buffalo side of things, I mean, all the receivers behind Khalil Shakir are just at a 50%, 40% route run rate, and you cannot have them in your lineups. All right, moving over to Indy and Kansas City. Probably the game of the week here, a 50.5 over under. The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites in this one. Rashi's going to go into the must-start category. And then you got Pierce and Michael Pittman. They're a little bit tougher of a diagnosis this week. You actually see that Vegas has Pierce at 53.5 yards with Pittman at 49.5. So they prefer Pierce in the yardage side of things, but they do give Pittman the slight edge in total receptions here at 4.5. The Chiefs passing defense is pretty damn good, as you can see. A lot of orange, a lot of red there. I think both of them definitely deserve to be into your lineup. Do I put them in the feels good category based on the matchup? Probably not, but they're definitely high-end flexes for sure. And I would put both of them at the very top of the list, and they're probably bordering on the feels good. I mean, Alec Pierce has played really well all season. Pittman had started off really hot and kind of cooled off a little bit here. But like I said, I feel pretty good about both of them being in my lineup. Xavier Worthy, the next pass catcher here, I mean, he's just absolutely fallen off a cliff here since Rashee Rice's return. So always eligible for a big play, always eligible for an end around near the goal line. But at the end of the day, if you're a Worthy owner, this has been a nightmare scenario since Rice's return. So he's going to be a shaky flex down here. Josh Downs is going to get into the shaky flex category. Hollywood Brown can get himself into the rather not category. He's semi-involved a little bit. But other than that, yeah, we're kind of out everywhere else. And I will just point out real quick, Charvarius Ward, the cornerback for the Colts, after suffering that concussion in pregame warmup, second concussion of the year, did activate his practice window this week. So he could be back. And I'm telling you, that trio of the Colts cornerbacks of Sauce Gardner, Ward, and Kenny Moore is, on paper, dynamite. All right. So just something to watch out. If they have an elite pass defense down the stretch, don't be surprised. All right. Moving to Minnesota at Green Bay. We've got the Vikings as 6.5-point underdogs, 41.5-point total in this one. Justin Jefferson, yeah, I mean, he's Justin Jefferson. You're not going to sit him. We're not getting cute here. On the other side of the ball, Jaden Reed's practice window was activated. The 21-day practice window was activated for him, but he did not practice on Wednesday. So it feels like he's kind of trending towards probably sitting this one out and then maybe returning next week. So it's going to be a lot of the same rollout for the Green Bay Packers as it's been the last few weeks. And now they have Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson pretty much back-to-back in terms of their yardage in Vegas here. Romeo Doubs at 51.5, Christian Watson at 50.5. They're both bordering on that like dub flex to shaky flex category. Like I've used Doubs a few times over the last few weeks, and he's usually good for like 10 or so points, but he's not scoring many touchdowns anymore. He is dropping some passes, which I think is for the most part a little bit more uncharacteristic than probably given credit for. And he's a pretty good receiver. He's been Love's top dog, especially since Tucker Kraft has gone down. So Doubs is going to go into the dub flex category. And honestly, if it's my team, I'm probably starting Doubs over Khalil Shakir. And Watson's been really involved. You know, he's scoring touchdowns. He's getting big plays down the field. I'm a little bit more skeptical about him, just the way that his points come. And given the tough matchup, the game environment of a 41.5-point total, you know, the Vikings have allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. I think I'm going to throw him into the shaky flex category, but you could definitely do worse. So he's going to be at the top of that list. Same thing with Jordan Addison down here. He is someone that's really, you know, taken a big hit with JJ McCarthy at QB. Green Bay is obviously just an above average pass defense here. So not a very, very good matchup. Golden's going to go into the rather not category. And I believe we can move on from there. So we can go to New England at Cincinnati. A lot of moving parts, obviously, here. Before we do jump into that, I do have a quick update for the Big Dog members. So if you guys are Big Dog members, sign up on BDGE.co. We have a cool update in the rankings for you guys. As you know, you could use the tiebreaker tool that we have, you know, that helps you compare your sit-start players here. And we finally added in individual player props, all right? So if you are, you know, a lot of my videos include those to help you make those decisions, but now we actually have them in the rankings for you guys. So if you're comparing, you know, Tez Johnson, to Darnell Mooney, to Romeo Doubs, to Christian Watson, you can look in here and see what their reception markers are, their receiving yards are, their anytime touchdown line, the spread for the games and things like that. And you're able to do that across positions. If you're trying to decide between, you know, like Kenneth Walker and the other wide receivers and whatnot, and Chase Brown, whatever, you can compare up to, I think, like 8 players, maybe even more than that. I don't even know. But it will have their rushing attempt numbers, their rushing yards, receptions, all that good shit. All the stuff that I use in my videos is now pretty much available in the rankings for you guys, which is super fucking hype. And I hope it's really, really valuable for you guys. Over the offseason, we're going to do a complete not rehaul, but we're going to keep adding things like weather, injuries, all the stuff that I use in my videos. All right. So just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Big Dog members. That is now available for you guys in the rankings. And of course, if you are not a Big Dog member, you can go sign up on BDGE.co. But the cheapest way, you can get the next 3 months free if you go to our partner website or app, MGM, deposit $10 if you're a first timer on there and use code BDGE when you do so. Play any slip on any of these odds, any of these props, and they will give you a promo code in their app that you can use on our website to get the Big Dog membership absolutely free. And pretty cool. I know if you live in the state of Missouri, obviously you're probably hyped for December 1st because a lot of sports books are going live then. If you do that now between right now and December 1st, if you're a Missouri person and you use our code BGE, they're also going to give you $100 free in bonus bets that you can use across any slips that you want right now. So if you do that, if you sign up with our code BDGE before December 1st, before it goes live there, you will be getting $100 in bonus bets on there. All right. So MGM app, use code BDGE when you deposit $10 or more, play any slip, you'll get the Big Dog membership for free for 3 months. Let's talk about New England at Cincinnati. Now, we do not have a status on Joe Burrow. He returned to a full practice, played 11 on 11s yesterday. So I think there is a real chance that he could suit up against the New England Patriots on Sunday, which would be a huge boost for this Cincinnati offense. Jamar Chase is obviously suspended here for this one. So I am skeptical about the success of this offense if Joe Flacco is under center, because it will be much easier to just kind of concentrate on the receivers here for Cincinnati with Jamar Chase out. Like, your really only intention is to lock down T. Higgins. That being said, if you're a T. Higgins owner, obviously you're not going to sit him. His prop is really high. It's higher than Justin Jefferson's this week. 68.5. Stephon Diggs I mean, the fact that his prop is down at 51.5 feels a little bit sus there. I mean, he's been so good for the Patriots this year as the number one wide receiver. The matchup is incredible against the Cincinnati Bengals. Most teams do run the ball a shit ton, which is why you can see that their fantasy points allowed number is down at 23 for wide receivers. But in terms of EPA, in terms of like their actual down-to-down efficiency, they are dead last in wide receiver productivity. So that is one of my favorite lines this week is Stephon Diggs over 51.5 receiving yards. I feel really good about him. Andre Iosivas, I think you're getting probably a little bit too cute if you want to have him in your lineup. Like, he's not a substitute for Jamar Chase. So, you could do worse, but he's going to go at the bottom of the shaky flex tier for me. We also do likely have Kayshon Boutte returning this week, so it's a good matchup for him. If he does not return, I do like Matt Collins. He's been really, really involved. If Boutte does return, I think they all kind of just get into that shaky flex category where it's hard to predict which one of them is going to get home for you. Moving to the New York Giants at the Detroit Lions. The Lions, 10.5-point favorites at home in the Dome, 50.5-point total. Of course, Amon-Ra is going to go into the must-start category. Jameson Williams with Dan Campbell calling the plays is a different type of beast here. So he's going into the feels-good category. I mean, his second half is going to be something beautiful there when we look back at it. And then Wan'Dale Robinson on the other side. We have Darius Slayton, who did not play last week with the hamstring strain. If we look at yesterday's practice, I believe he started off with a DNP, as Terrion Arnold, as did Brian Branch. But Wednesday practice reports can be, a little bit skewed here. So we'll have to see what else comes here. Kirby Joseph with a DNP. Darius Slayton, though, DNP, he missed all of last week. And the fact that he's not back at a limited practice puts him on the 51-49 side of probably not suiting up again. And with Jackson Dart likely returning at quarterback, I do see this as being a very, very good matchup for Wan'Dale Robinson and probably a ton of targets for him. I mean, his upside's a little bit capped just because of the player that he is, but I think he goes right into the dub flex category. Would start him over Shakir. I have him ranked over Romeo Doubs right now. My rankings are live, as you guys saw on the website right now. So yeah, I feel good about Wan'Dale Robinson with the likelihood of Darius Slayton missing again this week. Jets at Baltimore here. We got Baltimore's 13.5-point favorites, 44.5-point total. Yeah, I mean, I expect Baltimore to just beat the shit out of the Jets. Obviously, it's going to be a super, super heavy Derrick Henry day, but I still like Zay Flowers. I feel good about him. On the flip side, Adonai Mitchell did lead the team in targets. Obviously, didn't come through production-wise, but Tyrod Taylor under center. There should be a little bit more stability in the passing game, and I think they're going to have to throw the ball 40 times in this game. So, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Adonai Mitchell had a decent fantasy day. So, I'm going to throw him into the bottom of the shaky flex here. Would obviously rather look elsewhere, but I do think the usage numbers are going to be pretty strong for him. Next up, we got Pittsburgh at Chicago. Chicago, 2.5-point underdogs here, 45.5-point total. We still do not have word on who the quarterback is. Honestly, I'm not too pressed about that as it relates to the pass catchers here in Pittsburgh. That would be DK Metcalf for the most part. Let's see if we have any updated news on Jalen Johnson here. He was a limited participant. He was back practicing last week. He is their stud cornerback. And Kyler Gordon's practice window actually opened as well this week. He was on the IR. So if they do get Jalen Johnson back and Kyler Gordon back, that is going to be an issue for the Steelers wide receivers because those are two very good cornerbacks. So that remains to be seen for the moment. That being said, DK Metcalf has been so inconsistent this year. I think the matchup is good. I do think, at the end of the day, you probably have to put him into the dub flex here. Like, I would start him over Shakir. I would start him over Dobbs, but I'm not going to go crazy with him. He's going to be somewhere in like the wide receiver 3 range in my rankings for me. Rome Odunze, not been great this month for show, but I do think he belongs in your lineups without a doubt. And he's going to be at the very, very top of the dub flex tier because he's still Caleb's favorite target. And the problem really is that the rest of these receivers are, shaky flexes at best. DJ Moore has been extremely unproductive this year. Luther Burden, every time he gets more than like 40% of snaps, everyone's like, the breakout is coming, and then it never fucking comes. So I'm out on that. Roman Wilson's playing more snaps than Calvin Austin right now, so I actually think you could throw him into the bottom of the shaky flex tier as well, and then Calvin Austin into the rather not tier, and we can move along. Next up, we got Seattle at Tennessee. Seattle 13.5-point favorites, 40.5-point total here. JSN, of course, must start all the way at the top there. On the flip side, we do have a few moving parts here. Alec Aymaner was a DNP on Wednesday. Shamir DK was banged up last game, but he returned to a full practice, so it does look like he's going to be suiting up here. And they got Van Jefferson. Like, listen, at the end of the day, Seattle's obviously an awesome defense. If like all these guys miss, no more Tyler Lockett in town. If Aymaner's out, I think you can make a case for Shamir DK being at I mean, 38.5 receiving yards feels high for this matchup and a dude who's been wildly inconsistent. I think I probably like the lower on that line immediately, but I guess if those guys miss, like, again, you can make the case for him being in there. Rashid Shaheed and Cooper Kupp are both running about 70% of the routes. The matchup is great, but I do expect Seattle to go like super heavy with their running backs and just beat the shit out of Tennessee. So I don't know how many pass attempts Sam Darnold's going to have. Shaheed's obviously always viable to make a big play, but like at this point, based on the lack of production he's had for Seattle, I think it's a little bit tough to swallow having him in your lineup as anything more than a shaky flex for the time being. I would start Shaheed over Cooper Kupp for what it's worth, but I don't really want any of these guys in my lineup. Next up, we got Cleveland and we got Las Vegas. They are in Vegas. This is a 36.5 point total. The Raiders are 3.5 point favorites because Shedeur Sanders is under center. Now, the Raiders get a really tough matchup against the Browns' pass defense, and the Browns would have a great passing matchup, but again, their quarterback is Shedeur Sanders. So both Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman are guys that I don't want in my lineup. I'm going to put Jeudy into the shaky flex tier. Like, listen, at the end of the day, Shedeur is going to throw the ball, and he's got to target somebody out there. Jeudy's probably the most talented playmaker they have, but I definitely don't want him in my lineup. Trey Tucker, based on the matchup, definitely going to go into the shaky flex tier. He's shown some good games. Obviously, last week he had a good game. He had the monster game earlier on in the season, but his floor is very, very, very low. And if they're going to rely on anyone in the passing game, it's going to end up being their tight ends, Brock Bowers, and a little bit of Michael Mayer. So we're just kind of staying away from this game ultimately. Like, if you have guys in this game in your lineup, you are probably in trouble to begin with. Jacksonville at Arizona. All right. So we've got a 47.5 point total here. We've got Jacksonville as 3-point favorites. We are expecting, it seems, Brian Thomas Jr. to return. He's gotten back to practice on a limited basis. Again, that's basically what he had all of last week before ultimately not suiting up because of the high ankle sprain that he suffered a couple weeks ago. But this feels like it is actually trending for him to return. Now, Brian Thomas Jr. has been all over the place, obviously. It does seem like there's a good chance Brenton Strange also returns for this one. So I will say for BTJ, well, obviously he's the guy I'd most like to own in this offense. It's a little bit, all over the place with how I'd imagine the targets are going to disperse, because Jacoby Myers has kind of fit in really, really well and almost become the top target for Trevor Lawrence with BTJ and Brenton Strange and Travis Hunter out. So I do think that kind of muddies the water for a guy like Brian Thomas Jr. So, I have him on a team and I'll likely be starting him if he is playing this week, which I guess I do expect him to play. I don't feel good about it. He's going to go into the dub flex tier. Like, I'd start him over these guys. I'd start him over the majority of dudes I don't feel great about, but I don't feel great about Brian Thomas Jr. I think Jacoby Myers is startable in a sense just because he's shown out pretty well since he's come over to Jacksonville. Parker Washington's going to go at the bottom of that shaky flex tier. Marvin Harrison Jr. going to miss this one. And, the big talk of the town here is Michael Wilson. He will be the number one receiver for the Arizona Cardinals once again. It's a decent matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, 13th in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position, but bottom 6 in EPA per pass allowed, which is really more of like a good efficiency marker on whether or not the defense is good here. But a relatively good total, 47.5. Jacoby Brissett's going to get his. He targets Trey McBride. He targets Michael Wilson on pretty much every single throw. And that Brissett's going to trust Michael Wilson after what he did for him last game, 18 targets, 15 catches, all that good shit. So I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm just going off vibes, if I'm just going off feels, I'm throwing Michael Wilson in the feels good category. Like, I feel pretty damn good about having him in my lineup. So he's going to go there. And that's that. Greg Dortch, he's not on my list right now. I thought I added him into the players. Honestly, I think you can do worse than Greg Dortch. Also, he'll probably be in the bottom of that shaky flex tier. I think you can go a lot of other options, but I don't think he's terrible. Atlanta at New Orleans here. We've got Atlanta as a 1.5 point underdog in New Orleans in the Dome, 39.5 point total. That feels a little low. I know that it's Kirk Cousins. I know there's no Drake London here, but 39.5 points for teams that don't really have that great of defenses, that's going to be something I hammer right now. Let's put this parlay together. We got Atlanta. We've got New Orleans, 39.5 points over. We had, what else did we like? We like Stephon Diggs receiving yard line. All right, we're going to parlay those two together. 25 pays out for 63. Drop a comment if you riding that with me, all right? Make sure you do it on MGM, and you can always follow all my picks for free on the Pickett app. Use code BDGE when you download it. Free to do it. No credit card required. Will automatically follow me. Pickett, Pikkit. All right? Chris Olave, feel good. Ton of targets from Tyler Shuck. No more Rashid Shaheed. Just got rid of Brandon Cooks, so they don't really have a wide receiver too. I expect him to get 1,000 targets. You know what sucks? You know what really sucks as I'm going through this video? I'm playing Jamestein in your idiot league mates this week. He's 9-2. I'm 8-3. We're fighting for that bye spot in the playoffs. And I have Jamar Chase, so he's out. I got Devon Achane. He's on bye. I got Sam Laporta. So my best receiver, my best running back, my best tight end are out. And as I'm going through these players, I'm talking about all the guys that I feel fucking phenomenal about. He's got Derrick Henry. I'm like, yeah, they're going to dominate the Jets. He's got Kenneth Walker. Yeah, they're going to dominate the Titans. He's got Chris Olave. He's got Michael Wilson. Like, he's got a really, really fond matchup this week. All of his players are just sitting in fucking good spots. It hurts. It hurts. Anyways, you're not here to hear me cry about that league. If you do want to hear me cry about that league, though, you guys know we have the other channel, Your Idiot League Mates, where you could follow that fantasy football league and everything that happens within it over there. We'll link that channel down below. On the flip side, no Drake London. We've got Kirk Cousins, and then Darnell Mooney is the only guy to talk about here. Obviously, this has been an absolute abomination of a season for Darnell Mooney. Not catching balls, no production. Kirk Cousins looks out of control. I will say, though, listen, I think Kirk will have better days ahead. People are thinking about Kirk Cousins as if he's like fucking Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. Yes, he's looked bad, but full weeks of practice are going to go a long way. The matchups are pretty strong for him over the next 6 weeks. They get the Saints this week, so don't be surprised if Kirk Cousins has a few days. Maybe we need to wait for Drake London to get back into the lineup, but I do think we're going to have some good usable days out of Kirk Cousins. Darnell Mooney, I'm going to throw him into the shaky flex here. Like, his line's at 47.5. Vegas is projecting him to get a lot of volume. He's really the only receiver there. It's like him, David Sills, and then the last time Kirk Cousins started, Kyle Pitts did catch 9 passes. So if Kyle Pitts is available for you, go pick him up. He should get a very, very high target volume with Drake London on the sideline. So Darnell Mooney, I think you can do a lot worse than Darnell Mooney. He's going to go into the shaky flex tier. Don't feel confident based on what we've seen, obviously, but you could do worse. And like I've said before, like we saw Darnell Mooney was almost a 1,000-yard receiver last year with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. So we've seen crazier things. All right. Next game up, we got Philly at Dallas. Now, Dallas, 3-point underdogs here, 47.5-point total. Now, we did get this matchup in week 1. It was in Philly. Philly won 24-20. This was pretty much the only bad game that George Pickens had. Their strategy was to shadow George Pickens with Quinyon Mitchell and then, double team CeeDee Lamb over the top. That didn't work. CeeDee Lamb went for over 100 yards, had a really, really big game. George Pickens was shut down. That being said, though, that was without Jalen Carter. So the Dallas Cowboys went with a run-heavy approach, and Javonte Williams had a big day. So obviously, CeeDee Lamb's going to go into the must-start category. This is more a conversation about George Pickens. The defense that they're going against is really, really tough. Pickens has been a beast. I also don't think the Dallas Cowboys really knew what they had with George Pickens at the start of the year. I don't think they were comfortable putting him into the slot. I don't think they were really comfortable putting him into positions where he can make plays after the catch. They were sending him deep a lot, not really utilizing the full George Pickens experience, which they obviously have known to come and love at this point. So I'm a little bit more optimistic about George Pickens now in this matchup. I don't think he'll get shut down. I will think he'll obviously have a little bit more of a struggling game than we've seen. I mean, the last, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, basically every week since fucking week 1, he's been an absolute monster. So he's going to be in your lineups. I'm going to throw him into the feels good category and probably ahead of these guys. But I will say just tough road ahead. We do have the matchup from week 1 where he was shadowed by Quinyon Mitchell and just a very, very tough matchup overall. On the flip side, we've got A.J. Brown. We got Devontae Smith. I mean, they got A.J. Brown's line at 60.5. They got Devontae Smith at 59.5. We know that shit is pretty much fake at this point. They do not produce a lot of yardage on this team, but the matchup is juicy. Dallas, second most fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position, 4th in EPA per pass allowed, second most points overall allowed to opponents here. So on paper, great matchup. Brown and Devontae Smith basically can't produce in the same game together. Jalen Hurts, they will be without Lane Johnson, which we've seen splits, and Philly's offense can struggle a bit when Lane Johnson is not on the offensive line. I do think just based on matchup, though, Brown's going to have to be in your lineup. I think Smitty is too, just because in big games, they obviously bring ceilings that a lot of players do not bring. So they're both going to be in the dub flex category for me based on the matchup this week. Again, if you need the actual rankings of where I feel about these guys, available on bdge.co, big dog members, but you can clearly see that Vegas has relatively high hopes for them, 60.5, 59.5. That is higher than, all these guys behind them, Pittman, Wandell, Romeo Dobbs, those types of dudes. So they belong in this category of the feels good to the dub flex tier just based on matchups. But also just to circle back on that game 1, I gave you the stats for CD and George Pickens. A.J. Brown in week 1 had 1 catch for 8 yards. Devontae Smith had 3 catches for 16 yards. So it didn't go much better for them on the flip side there. So again, take that for what you want. I don't have any groundbreaking analysis or logic that can tell you what's going to happen with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, because that is an impossible task at this point in the season. Moving on to Sunday Night Football, we've got Tampa Bay at the LA Rams here. All right. We've got a 49.5 point total. The Rams are 6.5 point favorites here. Of course, Puka goes into the must start category. Abuka has struggled a little bit more than the early season explosion that he's had. And this is a very tough matchup against the LA Rams, who are bottom 3 in EPA per pass allowed. Obviously, they don't allow a lot of points to opponents. We saw the Seattle Seahawks really struggle in the passing game last week. Sam Darnold, 4 interceptions. Obviously, Abuka is going to go into your lineup here. Throw him into the feels good category more so than the must start, just because of the matchup here. But, you know, he's basically a must start. Obviously, if you got Abuka, you're starting him. Same thing with Devontae Adams here. Chris Godwin did return to practice last week, and he is practicing in limited this week. So there's a chance that he returns. I mean, there's no chance he's going into my lineup. I'm not really pressed about him. What he does impact is like Tez Johnson's target share, most likely. Sterling Shepard's target share, most likely. If Chris Godwin does not play, I still like Tez Johnson. Even though he donated last week, he's been really good more often than not. So I'd throw him into the shaky flex tier regardless, but he'd be closer to the top of it if Chris Godwin does not play. If Godwin does play, he's still in the shaky flex tier. He moves down probably, you know, 8-ish spots or whatnot. But I still like Tez Johnson, relatively speaking, because in a 49.5 point total with the Rams offense clicking the way it does, I do think Baker's going to have to throw a lot of balls here. It doesn't sound like Bucky Irving's going to be back for this game, so I wouldn't expect them to have to be able to lean on the run game to a high degree. So again, Baker Mayfield, probably a lot of attempts here. I think some of them will go to Tez Johnson, of course. Moving to the last game of the slate, we got Carolina at San Francisco, Monday Night Football. San Francisco, 7 point favorites, 48.5 point total. Tet and Bryce went brazy last week, thanks mostly, I think, to them trying to shut down Rico Dowdle. And you know, the Falcons are saying, hey, you know what, Bryce Young, you're going to have to beat us. And to his credit, he beat us. So I don't think it's smart to put Tet right into the must-start category, just because more often than not, he's a high floor play. But 61.5 yards, Vegas likes him. I like him. Feels good to have him in your lineup for show. On the flip side of things, Brock Purdy came back last week, had a great opening game, 200 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Ricky Pearsall also made his return last week, was not really involved whatsoever. Better days ahead for sure. Pretty good matchup against the Carolina Panthers here. 8th in EPA per pass allowed. So, you know, on paper, should be good. Juwan Jennings seeing a ton of targets, so he's going to go into the dub flex category for me. I would start him over Shakir. I do have Jennings and Dobbs both in a league together, and I would start Jennings over Dobbs. I have Brian Thomas Jr. and Jennings in a league together as well. Would probably start BTJ. But Jennings I feel relatively good about. And Ricky P, listen, I think he's an explosive playmaker. And I think he's a good player. And I think some of his stats were just skewed by the fact that he was kind of the only receiver playing when he had his big games earlier on in the season. But I still really like him as a separator, as a route runner. I love being attached to this offense as a 49er receiver. You know they're going to make a lot of plays. You know they're going to move the ball. You know they're going to sling the ball. You know they're just going to have a lot of success. So despite last week's shitty performance for Ricky P, I like him more than the guys in the shaky flex tier. So he's going to go into the dub flex tier, probably closer to the bottom of it because we haven't seen the consistency from him. But I do think he's viable to pop off any given week. Speaking of popping off any given week, Xavier Legette last week. Yeah, I mean, I'm not starting him this week. You can throw him into the bottom of the shaky flex tier, but I think you're fucking nuts if he's in your lineup. And that is all for the week 12 wide receiver rankings. We'll go into poster mode so you can see everybody here. I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, we did the running back version yesterday. So if you want to go watch that now, you could do so. And if you're new here, subscribe. We do this every single week for running backs, for wide receivers, of course, the waiver wire videos, the recap videos. If you want my rankings with all of this info included into it, bdge.co. Become a Big Dog member. If you are in Missouri, again, you've got until December 1st to sign up with code BDGE. You'll get a free $100 in bonus bets on the site. If you are not in Missouri, you could still sign up with code BDGE and get 3 months free to the Big Dog membership if you're a first-time depositor of $10 or more. All right? I love y'all. I'm out of here. Smoochies.